What's up, everybody? Jensen Cummings here. Thank you for tuning in as always. Today's show on Best Served Fresh, where we talk about fresh ideas, new approaches, best practices within the hospitality and restaurant industry. And this is BSP157. Wow. Real Estate Reimagined with Nathan Stern of Broad Street Realty. Nathan, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jensen.
All right, so Nathan Stern is the Assistant Vice President at Broad Street Realty based in Denver, Colorado, currently in Pueblo, working on an exciting project we're going to talk about for sure. But before we get into all of that, Nathan, tell people specifically Broad Street Realty, kind of what's your company all about?
Yeah, so Broad Street Realty is a full-service commercial real estate firm. We're headquartered in Bethesda, Maryland. We're the one weird outlier office west of the Mississippi. And, you know, if you think about like a three-legged stool, so to speak, kind of terrible metaphor. But anyway.
Let's go there, though. I like it.
Yeah, you know, gotta go with what you got. So we own shopping centers. We own about 15 shopping centers around the country, mainly in the Mid-Atlantic. We own 2 in Colorado, Lamar Station Plaza, which everybody knows because Casa Bonita is there, and a shopping center called Shops at Greenwood Village at Arapahoe and Dayton in Greenwood Village, Colorado. Then we do commercial brokerage as well. We do list our own shopping centers. Myself personally, I'm solely third party. I focus on food and beverage tenant representation, but we list our own centers as well as do third party brokerage. And then we do commercial property management. We manage our own centers as well. And we kind of
bottom. Tell everyone who doesn't know third party tenant representation. What exactly does that mean?
So for every transaction or most transactions, you'll have a broker representing the landlord or the property owner or the seller, depending on the type of transaction, and you'll have another broker representing the buyer or the tenant. So we really specialize on representing the buyer or the tenant, mostly tenants. Some of our clients want to purchase, and so what we do is we help them find and negotiate on their own real estate, and we bring an expertise both in the site selection and negotiation process that really helps our clients out. And one of the big advantages of working with the broker, especially on the tenant or buyer side, is generally the clients don't pay us. That the landlord or the seller will pay us when a lease is signed. So it's one of the rare instances where you get our services and someone else pays our fee at the end of the day. So we think it's a really good deal and a win-win situation for our clients, because we provide a lot of value and ultimately somebody else pays a fee, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, knowing our restaurant people, that's piques interest for sure. All right, so I am a emerging chef. I want to own my first restaurants. You're the call that I need to make. Basically, a broker in your space that's going to be representing the tenant side is going to be my broker. I'm going to come to you and say, hey, I have this dream, this vision. My family has been making lumpia or barbecue for my whole life, and I want to turn that into my own concept. And I come to you, correct? That's the first kind of stage. Like I find you, however, you worked on the restaurant that I worked on before or whatever it might be. And then I want to go there because that happens a lot. And honestly, I've been there. I have no idea what prospecting real estate means. I have no idea what I'm supposed to be looking for or asking. And so often we don't ask the right questions. We ask the wrong questions. So let's go there. The first couple things, I sit down with you and say, my dream restaurant, I want to open it. What are the first couple questions? Let's talk about that dynamic of the first meeting. What should we be talking about?
Yeah, and I think one thing that I would bring up is even before we start working together, we would want to see your business plan and we'd want to understand what your real estate requirements are based on your business plan.
Yeah.
Because
what
a lot of times,
business plan? Remember, I'm in restaurants, so I probably have no idea what a business plan is.
Yeah, and to be honest, we don't really work directly with clients helping them build their business plan. So you're just mentioning you were talking to and had on your show Andrew Parr with Angry Olive Consulting. So the first thing we would say is if you gave me that quizzical look and said, well, what's a business plan? Well, I don't know, how big I want to be. I don't know what my menu is going to be. I don't know what my concept is, specifically. That would be the first thing we'd say. Go talk with Andrew or a consultant, who's active in the food and beverage industry. And come back when you have a better sense of what your concept is, because the worst thing that we could do is jump right into the real estate search, find you a 5,000 square foot restaurant, and you realize you only want 15 seats and most of your business is going to be to go, And then you're under the gun. You signed a long-term lease, you signed a personal guarantee. So, all of your personal assets are on the line. And now you're in a space that's way too big and expensive, and you're setting yourself up to fail from day one. So we would never want to start a real estate search until our clients are pretty dialed in on what type of space they're looking for. Now, of course, nobody can say exactly like, I want a space that's, 1,957 square feet, exactly. There's always going to be some degree of variability, but if you don't know whether you're looking for a 500 square foot space, a 2,500 square foot space, or a 5,000 square foot space, you're really not ready to be able to sign a lease and then figure it out. Because, once you sign the lease, it's game on. You're in it. Sometimes you can get out, but you're in it. It's a legal document. You've committed everything to it. You spent legal fees, most likely with an attorney. At that point, you've potentially spent design fees with an architect. And if you do all that without having a good sense of your concept, then you're doing things backwards, and you're probably going to be setting yourself up to fail. So, the first thing is, what's your business plan? What's your vision? How dialed in is your concept? Yeah. Assuming you come and your concept is pretty dialed in, then we just want to know about you. What's your background? Who are you? Why are you the right person, or why are you the best person to be able to launch that business? Because being able to tell your story and being able to communicate your vision is so important. And then, even before we start working on a real estate search, we would want to line up a couple of things on our end as well. So the first of which we call it a lookbook, concept deck. It essentially is taking that, let's say 50-page business plan that's text heavy, and distilling it into a 10-page visual heavy lookbook, where you can really communicate your concept to a landlord, to a lender, to a city, in some cases, to where they would really understand it. And then the second thing is, we would want to make sure that you have your personal financials put together, because especially if you're a chef and you don't have an open unit, a landlord is going to say, that's great, I love your vision, but what kind of assets do you have personally to back up that lease in case you fail? What do I have to collect on? Or even, how are you even going to get the doors open? Restaurants are expensive. And so if you show a landlord, I'm ready to commit $5,000 to this project, and the build out and equipment and getting open is $250,000, there's a big disconnect there. And we want to be able to flag that before we go to present to a landlord, because if your concept or the financials aren't to a point where we really think you're going to be successful, then we want to say, go talk to a lender, go talk to other, potential equity investors first. Because, again, just like signing a lease on a space that's way too big, or in the wrong area or the wrong type of configuration might be the kiss of death for your business. Also, if you sign a lease and you don't have enough money to get the doors open, or you spend every last penny getting the doors open and you have no working capital, if something unexpected happens, like obviously the times we're living in today, then you're going to be in huge trouble. And so we just want to, the biggest thing that we look at first is, making sure you're at the right place, that we believe, you have the concept and we understand the requirement, and you have the financials that are necessary, to be able to open the door and be successful, which doesn't mean we want everybody to have $1 million or whatever. Sure. Most of our clients don't, but we just want to make sure you're in the right situation to get the doors open and be successful with the concept that's well suited for the real estate that we find.
Yeah, just a little bit. And some people might, be rolling their eyes going, yeah, of course I know that you take all those steps. I know that you got to talk to a lender. Yet so many of us in the industry don't. We don't truly understand all the steps of the process. We don't understand the order of operation. We don't understand the expectations at every level of that. And so I think it's really important for us to understand what we're going into. We're so singularly minded on the dream and the vision that we have, the skill that we have, and we think that that is enough. There's so many boxes to check in this process. So not only going through and doing your due diligence to understand what those are, finding the right people who have your best interests at heart is a really, really important thing. So this is why, I want you to meet Nathan or any other broker in the space that's focusing on restaurants, because start a relationship now is something that I very much am a big believer in, before you are I don't know, we're so instant gratification, Nathan, in this industry, right? We make a plate, we sell the plate, people like the plate, and they tell us about it, and that loop closes quickly. So sometimes we struggle with thinking long term. We're very good tacticians, we struggle with strategy sometimes. And so I really want to set the tone for people to understand, like, you need to start to think about 2 years from now, because that's how long it takes to open a new restaurant quite often. And we don't expect that. And what happens is we start to take missteps. We start to get impatient. We start to push the tempo too much. We start to make concessions that we probably should not. So I want to like really hover on that. You need to start thinking, start thinking about 2 years from now. That's for sure like something that you need to be really aware of. All right. So setting the tone for kind of the expectation. You mentioned what's happening right now. I just want to hover on that for a moment because it's a big rabbit hole to go down. But what are a couple of the things we should be thinking about today when you are positioning concepts? Say I have all the boxes checked. I'm all the way down. We're looking for the 2,200 square foot to 2,500 square foot location for my barbecue concept, right? We're going to do, $242 a square foot build out. I understand all those things. What kind of are you thinking about right now today when it comes to kind of COVID, and leases are shifting pretty significantly? Real estate is shifting pretty significantly. A couple top line items we should be thinking about.
Well, one thing that, I just want to bring up first and foremost is, oftentimes rumors of restaurants' demise are greatly exaggerated. So we've seen headlines that 20 to 50% of all restaurants are going to close down as a result of COVID. And, we don't know how long COVID is going to be. We don't know what the impact will be. A lot of restaurants are using outdoor space and really utilizing that to add seats. When the winter comes, if we still have a COVID epidemic, that will put additional stress on restaurants. But as of today, if you look at it, there really have not been more restaurants closing down than there would be in a normal year. You see all of these running lists that publications are doing of, all of the restaurants that have closed down since COVID, and it's an overwhelming number. But if you really break that down to, all right, well, really at this point, COVID's been going on for 5 months. And what does that look like on a monthly basis? And how does that compare to a normal year? We're not seeing dramatically more restaurants close, or even really any more restaurants close now than in a given year. And a lot of the restaurants that have are ones that are particularly ill-suited to be utilized, in a post-COVID world. Because to actually answer your question, what, a lot of restaurateurs should be thinking about is, how do we have multiple sales channels to be able to be successful no matter what the environment is? So, what we've seen is initially when COVID hit, a lot of our clients put their search on hold because they didn't know whether it would be, a couple months or a couple years or what that would look like. And they said, all right, we're going to have our same concept. We're just going to wait it out and see if COVID is just a blip, and we can, a couple months down the road, do our search for our same concept that we would have done before. And now what we're seeing is a lot of our clients are coming back to us and they're saying, all right, we don't know how long COVID is going to last. It obviously isn't a flash in the pan. It could be a multi-year process depending on a vaccine and that rollout. But now we've changed our business model to something that would look for COVID. So what we're seeing for a lot of our clients is, they're getting smaller. First of all, they're not counting on being able to pack a dining room. They're having, they're making sure that there's the ability to access the space for pickup and delivery pretty easily. And they're just making sure that those channels are dialed in, those relationships are dialed in before they open the doors. And then a lot of them are thinking about, what's the outdoor space? Is there a drive-through? That could be more important. Or is there a pickup window, where you could grab your food without even entering the restaurant or without somebody running it to the curb? So a lot of these logistical questions, are really becoming paramount. And, nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows how long this is going to last, of course. And, you had brought up that 2-year window. I mean, a lot of times what we tell clients is, on average, if you start looking with us today, we anticipate, about 3 months until we find a spot, about 3 months of negotiation, about 3 months for permitting, assuming you're doing a build out, and then about 3 months for construction. So, you're really thinking about what the world is going to look like a year from today. And we don't even know what it's going to look like a week from today, let alone a year. So it's just really being prepared and having your systems dialed in to be able to succeed in multiple channels so that, you can keep the doors open, whether COVID, if COVID is here, and then if COVID has gone away and it's business as normal, then, it's really like a win more. Because, the other thing is, even if there is a vaccine, even if for whatever reason we're over COVID, we don't really know what the customer experience is going to be and what their confidence is going to be, and how, I'm a firm believer that eventually they will return to restaurants, but the question is when. And I think especially in an environment where we've gotten over the pandemic, but customers are slower to return, landlords are going to be a lot less willing to give concessions. Lenders are probably going to be less willing to give concessions because they've been beat up over the last, however long. And so that's really the period where you need to be especially vigilant to be able to ride it out until all the customers are willing to come back into your restaurants.
Yeah, I want to talk about the timing of that. Backing up to what you said, where you had people that were prospecting, they were looking for spaces, and then they said, whoa, I'm putting that on hold. That very specifically came up, just in the promo for this. Caroline Glover of Annette's was like, I love Nathan. I was like, I love Nathan too. That's great. And I said, have you guys worked together before? And she said, we were looking at some spaces to do something on top of Annette, and then all of this happened, and we kind of paused, and there was, all of that trepidation. And so I'm fascinated in that because a lot of people have paused. Now I'm interested in timing, because you just mentioned there's uncertainty now, and then once things crystallize again, and it is what it is, so to speak, there's going to be, again, a lot less concessions. Is the timing right now? There is opportunity in chaos, right? There is opportunity right now for restaurants. You may have an opportunity to renegotiate leases like never before, things like that. Is now a good time, in your opinion?
I think first of all, now might not be the right time for every concept. If you are doing a concept that's very entertainment or dine-in dependent, I would be hesitant to pull the trigger on that concept if we were opening in a short time horizon, especially because that's the most volatile and dependent on COVID. So I don't think the time is right today in any space for any concept. But if you've thought through your concept and you've got a business model that you think will survive and be all right in this current environment, and then once things return back to normal, it'll be a win more. I think in a lot of ways, this is the best time, because what the biggest challenge our clients faced before COVID was finding good people.
Yes.
And without a good team, it doesn't matter how good your product is. If your service isn't there, if your consistency isn't there, if you can't physically find the staff to go in your restaurant, you're not going to be successful. And a lot of our clients were in this place where they just had to hire all the time, and it was taking a ton of their time because, the competition for restaurant talent was so steep. And now, even though a lot of restaurants haven't closed, there have been a lot of people that have been laid off. And so there's really the best opportunity now than at any time since I've started working in restaurants to get that top level talent and really build that foundation to be successful, whether you want to just do one restaurant and stay there forever, or to build that foundation if you want to do multiple restaurants. I think that the time has never been better. So my feeling is, as long as you have a business model that you're confident can work, even if COVID is here to stay for a while, then I think, it's build that concept and get that rock star A+ team in place that will serve you well for, hopefully decades into the future.
When you're talking about the difference in concepts, I think there's already been a shift. Fast casual, QSR, whatever, it's been emerging. That's not new. Delivery is already here. It's just accelerated. That's not new. The size of spaces, I think it's interesting. You're going to see a lot less of the 3,500 to 5,000 square foot spaces that maybe I came up in the chef-driven concepts. You're going to see a lot more 2,200 square foot or 20,000 square foot, right? Where you're big, you're creating your own shopping mall, right? And that brings me to where you're in Pueblo right now. The project that you're working on, food hall. We've seen food halls, we've seen incubators and things like that come about. So talk about that as a model, where you see the opportunity there, maybe some challenges as people are scared because there's potentially more people going into a space like a food hall. Let's dig into that. But first, tell us specifically, what's the project you're working on right now in Pueblo?
Yeah, our project is called Fuel and Iron. It's a homage to the Colorado Fuel and Iron, which was the company that ran the steel mill, as well as a lot of energy interest throughout Colorado. We're transforming an 105-year-old building called the Holmes Hardware Block into a food hall with 5 restaurant tenants, a coffee and ice cream shop, and a central bar, which we're going to operate. And on the second and third floor, we're building 28 apartment units on top. And, so
Big project, Nathan.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's a complicated one, and I don't want to oversell it to say we have all the pieces figured out, because we don't quite, but we're working towards it, scheduled to close at the end of the year. And then the food hall would open in the first quarter of 2022. And just to back up for 1 second, just about food halls in general, Zach and I have become really big believers in working with a lot of clients who are currently operating in food halls and looking to open their own brick and mortars. We really believe in the power of the food hall as an incubator, and especially in the model that we're doing, where the operator handles a lot of things like the marketing and the utilities and the sales tax and the busing and the dishwashing, all of these things that would normally get pushed onto a restaurateur. It really allows the restaurateurs to hone their concept, to iterate, to really focus on building that customer relationship, and then putting some money in the bank and generating an operating history, so that when you are ready to open, you have a customer base that'll go with you. You have an operating history and some cash flow, for the equity to get a bank ready to provide a loan for you. And you have a concept that you've tried out, you've iterated, and there's nothing certain, but at that point, you're a lot more confident that the concept is going to work, rather than if you're just going to jump into a brick and mortar right from the beginning. And as food halls have proliferated around Denver, there are a lot more opportunities for clients, if this is their first concept, to launch in a food hall at first, rather than jumping right into a brick and mortar and getting started for, we're building out the kitchens, we're providing the equipment. Restaurants that go into our food hall will be able to get open for under $20,000 versus multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars, in a full service brick and mortar. So if you've never done a concept and you're figuring a lot out, I think a food hall could be a great place to start. And then we want to be there to help the restaurants within the food hall, doing what we do best at the end of the day, after a 2 to 3 year period when they're in the food hall, help them expand outside of the food hall, open their own brick and mortar, and give that space within the food hall to another restaurateur who's at the same step in their journey. And then, what we've really seen in Denver is, with the boom in restaurants, there's also a boom in that next generation or next level of culinary talent. So for every restaurateur, you have the chef, you have the bar manager, you have the general manager, and a lot of them are very entrepreneurial as well and want to open their own concepts. So the more successful concepts you have within a city, the more of that next tier you have with the right experience and knowledge, and it just kind of snowballs from there. So there aren't really any food halls in that model outside of Denver. We want to bring one to Pueblo, which is a great food city and a lot of their food traditions, but there's nothing like this that will allow restaurants down here to be able to incubate and grow, and then hopefully launch their own brick and mortar successfully after that.
I think there's massive opportunity on both sides of the equation. This is very interesting to kind of just hear the tenor of how you're speaking about this. One, it's not restraint, it's constraints a little bit, just to focus. We need to be focused a lot, especially on the culinary side. I know I've needed that a lot through my career. And so having this space where you're just focused on your food, you can just focus on delivering the best possible product. You can create a little runway and some history, some sales history. You can iterate, you can interact with guests, you can kind of understand your concept more fully to allow you to develop, I think is great. On the other side of the equation, I'm very interested because now you have an opportunity to see the best of the best talents kind of before they're ready for their full restaurant. For you, is there then an opportunity to think about both brokering, but potentially investment, since you said you're now in the operating space, right? You guys are going to be operating part of that business. Is there the potential for you to invest then in some of the standout concepts within that food hall?
Yeah, and that's really the long-term goal, is to be able to grow with our clients and participate on the real estate side. And that's, when we talk about ownership or development or redevelopment, we're not the smartest guys. We're not the best capitalized by any means. Where we have an advantage is being able to spot a property we think would be a perfect fit for food and beverage use, and then connect the property with the end user and have a sense of the real estate and build out process to get a building from vacant or a non-food and beverage use into a functioning restaurant space. And so absolutely, it's by no means a precondition of a restaurant going into the food hall. Sure. They can be represented by another broker. They could have no desire to work with us, after being in the food hall whatsoever. And that would be fine. But absolutely, if they want to grow and we can help them and be their partner in their real estate search, and hopefully participate. And in a dream world, it'd be participate and invest alongside them in their building, where they have an ownership stake in the real estate as well. I mean, that would be the absolute dream scenario. And
Yeah.
of course, we're a long way from even getting the food hall open. And then it's a minimum of 2 to 3 years from the time when, a restaurant would be ready to leave the food hall and open their own brick and mortar. So it's, it's really a dream at this point, but absolutely, we really hope we can get there and, really prove our worth to these restaurateurs that we would be a good, we'd be good as a landlord and we'd be good as a partner to where they say, absolutely, we want you to help us grow rather than we want nothing to do with you. If we can be really great to them as the operator and build a really strong relationship, then we hopefully will be in the driver's seat to be their partner in the next phase. And that would be a benefit to everybody.
Yeah, you're creating the opportunity for more serendipity to happen, to find those people because they're coming through you. You're hosting that funnel for it. I think it's important. So let's take the last couple minutes here. Way back to the beginning of saying I want to go and do my family legacy barbecue restaurant, right? What do I need to do to entice Broad Street to be able to get into your food hall? What's the kind of things that you're looking for? Because I want to give people a roadmap. I'm in Pueblo, I have a concept, I'm a talented chef, I want to get in, I don't know how. What's the conversation look like with you?
I mean, I think what we're really looking for in the food hall is to have a well-rounded group of restaurateurs that are bringing something new to the table, and not only new for Pueblo, that's certainly important, but, something that people couldn't just find in Denver, Colorado Springs either. The goal being, we really think Pueblo is going to be a key beneficiary post-COVID because people can do a day trip down to Pueblo from Denver, the Springs, and sleep in their own bed rather than jumping on a plane and staying in a hotel and dealing with an airport and going somewhere out of state. So if somebody comes down from Denver to Pueblo to visit the food hall, we want a really unique food experience that they couldn't get anywhere else. And a lot of that is using the unique flavors and dishes within Pueblo that don't exist anywhere in the state or in the world. The green chili, the slopper, some of these really unique customs and dishes and ingredients, that don't exist anywhere else. I mean, that's a great place to start. Use what makes Pueblo unique and build from there and do it in a new way that's exciting to a resident of Pueblo. So it's a little bit like threading the needle, but if you can do something that's exciting to Pueblo and exciting to somebody coming down from Denver, that's really that's the experience we're really looking for to create within the food hall that can appeal to locals and tourists. And that's really ideally what we'd want to see in restaurateurs.
Yeah, I want to see that because there's two sides of that equation. You want new, exciting, innovative. It's also really hard to get away from the pizza concept, the burger concept, the taco concept, all of the leaders within the revenue streams traditionally of what we've seen from fast casual, especially multi-unit type concepts, food hall concepts. These things they sell, they put butts in seats. You think that you're going to still, I'm guessing you're talking about slopper. You're going to have the burger concept that also includes the slopper, which anybody doesn't know, it's a green chili smothered open faced burger, classic of Pueblo. You're probably going to have the taco joint, but it's going to be focused on maybe indigenous ingredients or things like that of Pueblo. Like, how do you balance that out? Because you need the places that are going to put butts in seats to introduce them to the new concepts.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to be too prescriptive of saying these are the 5 categories we need, nor do we want to be too restrictive. Yeah, if somebody wants to do tacos, I mean, the slopper example as the burger concept is exactly, I think, the right way to look at it, where, sure, you could get your slopper without the green chili, and get it as a burger. And that's kind of, toe into what's really traditional and what works in food halls. Or you could do the special Pueblo twist and get it as a slopper with local green chilies and, farm to table from some of the local agriculture and have a really unique experience. And so we don't need concepts to do something totally revolutionary, molecular gastronomy that's never existed on the face of the earth, but just really adding that special Pueblo twist that if someone is looking for that, they'd be able to find something totally unique within the concept. That's really the goal.
Yeah, you want to create a uniquely Pueblo experience. I really appreciate that. I think that's going to be important. I'm fascinated in the way that you're going to market this for the day trip Denver. I think there's a lot of opportunity for that. I think there's going to be a lot of competition for that. Absolutely. We've seen a lot of that as day tripping and RVing and things like that have become like, RVing's up 600% because people are trying to go somewhere within their kind of their region I'm fascinated in all of that as when it comes to marketing and being able to drive attention. So I'm looking out for that 3 years from now. I'm thinking about it. I'm sure you and I will talk about it a little bit more. Nathan, I really appreciate you being on and the insights that you've given and just the conversations that we've had about real estate and kind of what's happening. So thank you so much for taking some time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Anyone who's listening, can please feel free to give me a call. We want to be as approachable as possible. We're happy to sit down with anybody, hear you out, and if it's not the right fit, just start looking for a space. We can hopefully steer you in the right direction. So looking forward to a lot of connections being made from the show. And Jensen, thank you so much for having me.
It's all humans and communication. That's it. All right, Nathan, you have a great day. I appreciate you. Cheers.
All right, thank you. Cheers.
All right. A lot of good stuff there. Real estate, a lot of opportunity right now, a lot of trepidation right now. I think the biggest takeaway for me is start a relationship. Have the conversation, start understanding the boxes that need to get checked, the process, the order of operations. If you're a chef, think about the order of building your dish, your recipe. The same thing has to happen when you're building out your concept. You need to start your story at the beginning and that understanding your concept. And that just doesn't mean the food that you cook. There are so many layers to that. And it's really important that you understand them, know who to talk to, and start building those relationships now. It's again and again and again. It's always humans in communication. And there's some opportunity. I'm very interested in the food halls. I'm very interested in ghost kitchens. I'm very interested in the opportunities for, somebody who's got a great slopper recipe to have some support and infrastructure to build out their concept and test that in a less strenuous model than what's been the norm for a long, long time. So thanks to Nathan for the time and the insights. We'll be talking a lot more about this for sure. So Real Estate Reimagined with Nathan Stern of Broad Street Realty, 157 episodes. I'm so grateful for all of you for taking some time and learning alongside me. So appreciate you all. Have a great day. Cheers.